Hope you had a wonderful mini break there. Enjoyed the few snacks that were left. We ate them all at lunch. This is the Space and City panel. So as you know, my name is Cassandra. We are going to introduce this lovely lady on the left to me, right to you. Yes. This panel is all about exploring the importance of spaces in cities. So the spaces that we work in, the spaces that we play in, the spaces that you just see. It is all about that. From locally to internationally, we've got spaces in Coventry, Egypt, and Colombia. And for that reason, we are going to have interpreters for the people that are watching all across the world. Spanish interpretation, live Spanish interpretation. So do keep a look out for that. There's some really amazing artists that you're going to be hearing from. And if you just take a look up there, there is actually the work of one of the artists. Her name is Michaela. She didn't want to be on the panel today. She was a little bit nervous, but her work is up there for you to take a look at. And from that, you can see that the artists that you're going to be hearing from are incredible, so we are really excited to hear from them. Massive thank you, to our interpreters as well. On this side, we have British Sign Language interpreters that have been with us all throughout the day, and they are going to be interpreting the rest of the event as well. So we are going to meet our speakers. So as I said, lovely young lady over here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Cassandra. Hello. Just quickly, have you ever been in a city and been in like a shopping centre and just been like, I need to close my eyes, this is overwhelming? Raise your hand. Have you ever been in a city and just been like, oh my God, I wish the public transport was better, who makes these decisions? Hey, I can see Amin as well. Have you ever been in a city and just thought like, we need more art, we need more green space, like where are the plants, where are the flowers? Woo, cool. So basically, if you raise your hand, this panel is for you. My name is Bryony Simcox. I studied architecture. I do a bit of everything, and I'm working on a project here in Coventry in a sensory garden, creating a sculpture that's about sound, sitting down, socializing with people. And hopefully today on this panel, we're going to talk basically all about public space, who owns it, who manages it, why is it important, and why should we all care about it, even if we're not architects.
Lovely. That sounds amazing. I like the hand raising. I related to all of that. We do have people, like I said, from Colombia as well, and they are on Zoom. So can you hear me? Hello? Hi, give me a wave. Gentleman in the glasses, give me a wave. Can you hear me? I'm guessing you can because he's smiling. Okay, so do you want to introduce yourself? Let's go first with Amin.
Hello. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I'm Amin, and I'm from Cairo, Egypt. I also studied architecture and kind of interested in different things as well. I've practiced in Cairo for a while, and right now I'm studying in Switzerland, doing my postgrad studies in something outside of architecture, just because of the same things also that we were also mentioned just now. I've also worked a lot with Prototype City, a project with Coventry now for many months now, and happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Let's go over to the people in Colombia. Hello. Muted mic. There we go.
Hi, good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon from us over here in Colombia. We're obviously really, really chuffed to have been invited, and we're really excited about getting into a really fruitful dialogue. My name is Camilo Fidel Lopez, and I work in Vertigo Graffitii. Obviously, for about 15 years, we've been asking ourselves, you know, all of these questions that you've just mentioned. Tatiana's here. Hi to absolutely everyone listening. Thank you so much for inviting us to such an interesting space. So, you know, we're in the process of, we worked with this project, you know, for Coventry City of Culture last year, and it's been great to speak about the different types of audiences that we all deal with and everything that we're all going through in our individual lives as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So that is the panel for today. I'm really looking forward to this chat. We are going to watch a really short film now, I believe, that's going to just kick off the discussion. So if you want to direct your attention up there, that should play for you in a second.
Empezamos a conversar en una especie de reuniones, en unos encuentros como acerca de lo que significa la juventud y acerca de todo lo que nos está atravesando pues como sociedad, como lo que nos mueve, como nuestras luchas, nuestras disidencias, y en colectivo con todo el proyecto de Coventry 2021 en Inglaterra.
Me gustó hablar con ellos, pues la barrera del idioma a veces estaba difícil, pero pues teníamos a alguien que nos traducía, pero a mí me gustó, estuvo genial.
Entonces, al escucharnos, al combinar ideas y al respetar al otro, se formó algo muy bonito. Y ver que para ellos nosotros somos algo más que un país tercermundista también es muy bonito. Que ellos se hayan dado cuenta de que tenemos muchas virtudes fue importante.
I found that they really had a lot to say. They were quite passionate about the positives in their city, even though there's quite a lot of negatives and quite a lot of hardship for especially young people.
sitio que tiene mucha memoria, que retrata las problemáticas sociales como más fuertes que tenemos en una sociedad como lo es pues Bogotá y Colombia, ¿no? Como en general. Entonces es muy importante este lugar porque es un punto de encuentro en donde siempre está pasando cosas.
Lo más difícil fue el boceto, como empezar a entendernos y entender nuestras mentes, nuestros puntos de vista y nuestras formas de trabajar.
Porque pues nadie era más que otro, ¿no? Todos éramos diferentes y cada quien tenía su estilo, entonces tocaba acoplarnos a las ideas de todos.
Disfrutamos mucho el proceso, obviamente hubo cosas que no le gustaron a uno en otro porque somos seres humanos, pero eso mismo hizo que el mural terminara en lo que es.
En la imagen hay unión y confianza. Hay diversidad, pero no es una diversidad separada y sectorizada, sino una diversidad que crea unidad.
Este tipo de muestras artísticas que acogen el cuerpo, puestas en escena, empiezan como a hacer ruptura.
Es una imagen que invita a parar, ¿no? En medio de tanto movimiento, en la zona, en medio de tantas ideas, de tantas posturas. Es una imagen que invita como a leer y a tener otras visiones de todo lo que somos, ¿no?
Pararse duro es no ser indiferente con las cosas que no me llegan, ¿sí? Pararse duro también es cuestionarse, pero también construir comunidad y entrar en procesos pedagógicos.
De reconocer quién eres, cuáles son tus valores, cuál es tu historia y reconocerte en el otro.
Y demostrar que lo que yo quiero hacer no es perder mi tiempo. Pararme duro es demostrarle a mi hijo que puedo ser feliz con lo que hago y que él puede lograr lo mismo.
Hacerse preguntas, darse cuenta de que las cosas no deben ser como siempre se nos han dicho y crear un camino a seguir a partir de estas preguntas, de este cuestionamiento.
Es seguir adelante, es no quedarnos callados, es no quedarnos calladas, es levantar la voz.
Darle voz a los que ya no están o los que no pueden hacerlo.
the short film Stand Strong. That was a really powerful film. I loved watching that. I did watch it last night as well, but watching it again, it's very impactful. So we are going to now talk about space. And the first question that I want to ask to our friends in Colombia and to the UK and to Egypt is, first and foremost, in Colombia, I'm going to guess you can hear me. I cannot see you, but I'm guessing you are there. Yes, hello, hi. So, Colombia, hello. Tatiana, let's come to you. What is the importance of public space in Colombia? And then I want to jump over to Egypt and the UK and ask, you know, how does that differ from place to place? So first, let's go to Colombia. What's the importance of public space there?
Hola.
Hi. Well, public space for us, you know, we see it as a space where we can converse and we can mutually dialogue in terms of our territory, you know, and we start to arrange different sort of meetings that go along, you know, the one biological line, so as to speak. And what I mean by that is it's a space that allows us to basically come together in terms of different practices, whether it be artistic or social. And so I think it's really important when we get to that territory or that space that's ours, in which absolutely anything can happen. And if you like, it's the sort of convector, it's the sort of thing that transports us to this community of speech where we can build up relationships, bonds, you know, beliefs. Public spaces for us, you know, they have different dynamics and different walks of life to them. They have different new functions, new places so that we can feel safer, more alive, more free. And so we need to then reconceive what we see by the word public, you know. We can all walk in certain spaces, right? But not just in terms of our own public safety, but we want to then be able to spark off different dialogues within those spaces.
Okay, that's fast. Amin, how would you say that differs in
Amin.
Hello. So, thank you first for that very impactful film. I think, as also Tatiana said, there are a lot of similarities when it comes to how public space is seen and used in global South cities in general as well. So I would say in Egypt, as a comparative kind of example, it's a context where public space has been gradually shrinking. The boundary between what is public and private is more blurred. There's more informal activities taking place there. And it was Jane Jacobs that said, when you think of the city, the first thing you think of is its streets. And that's really, I think, the best example to share with what public space is like in Egypt. It's a place that has shifting activities from festivals, markets, and spaces of protest. And during, for example, the Arab Spring, where the main site of the revolution in Egypt was Tahrir Square, which, even with its cultural importance, it functionally is just a roundabout. So spaces don't have to exist in a binary. It's this context that really proves that, and they shift functions all the time, and what flows through them as well. We have to, I think, challenge this simplistic understanding of our cities as black and white or informal, and what exists and could exist within them. With that question, I also wanted to show the animation that I worked on this movement experience within the city of Cairo, and the spectrum of possibilities of formal and informal activities in different intensities, from self-built communities on the edge to the highly controlled center in the Tahrir Square.
That's wonderful. I think what you said about it becoming what did you say, is becoming more privatized. It's something very relatable in that the public space is just, it's not becoming a public thing anymore, it is becoming more private. I could really relate to that. Bryony, what about in the UK? We are going to show your animation, but I want Bryony to answer that and then we'll come back to that.
Yeah, I loved the video in Colombia and I loved that comment about celebrating what's there. And I think in the UK, one of the challenges we have with public space is we don't use it, we don't see it as public, we don't ask for it. And as children, we play out in the streets, but over time, we dream of having our private houses and our private garden. And this is really dangerous because it's completely what Amin and Tatiana said, like this is the forum for making your voice heard, and it's your forum for making art, and it's your forum for just existing and kind of having a picnic, having a glass of wine, seeing your friends. I think post-lockdown, we've seen a really dangerous erosion of all of those rights, and the similarities between our three projects is we're kind of saying to normal people, if you don't campaign for this, you lose it. So yeah, I think the context of public space in a more formalized, arguably developed UK is actually, our public spaces are sometimes weaker. The site that our project is in gets locked every day at 4 o'clock. That's not really a public space in many ways. So yeah, but very interesting, the park in Coventry, the War Memorial Park that we're working in, they have 400,000 visitors every year. And in lockdown, they had 900,000, which to me just says that's what people want. They want somewhere to go and, you know, take their kids for a walk, or like I say, have some beer, not get told off, like make some noise, do some TikTok videos, I don't know, like, so these places are really important, in the UK especially.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think because in the UK as well, we are quite, I don't want to say that we're reserved, but when we can go out and we do go out, it is a really great time. Barbecues, we have a park around our house and they have a sign saying, no barbecues. And I would love just to get my family out and have a little barbecue over there. What's the problem? It's not going to harm, but that is what we're talking about today. So we are going to watch Amin's animation now. Amin, again, sorry, do you want to explain what this is, just in case someone missed it?
Sure. So this was just also an experiment outside architecture when I was practicing, and it was something I did in my old practice. And we were trying to study the formal-informal interface, maybe like a very strong phenomena present in global South cities, and just challenging this idea that there are no informal activities in the formal city, and vice versa, and the idea that our cities are just a binary and spaces have to be controlled in a certain way. And just from the movement from the informal periphery going into the very highly secured city center, I hope the animation kind of shows that a little bit.
I think we're about to watch the animation, but I can see clicking happening.
Ah.
It's coming.
Oh, should I share the screen from my side?
I think we've got it, Amin.
Okay.
شوكولاتة محشية شوكولاتة بالفل شوكولاتة باللون بيدينا ده ب5 جنيه ده الطريقة عالي بقى
Short film by Amin. So we are going to now get into a little bit of the discussion. So I want to come to you first, Bryony, and ask, how can public space play a part in starting conversations?
Oh, big question. There's a concept called urban acupuncture, which is literally, imagine a tiny needle, big back, but amazingly big change. And I suppose that's kind of the idea of the artist or the underdog, is that you can create really small changes that just tweak how people think. So I often, when I'm pressing the button, waiting for the lights to change so that I can walk across the street, you know, someone's just put a sticker there and it's quite random or like interesting, and you look at it and then you go home and you look at them on Instagram. Like, to me, that is people doing urban acupuncture. Or guerrilla gardening, if you've seen that, where people are saying, like, no, let's move these cars, let's put some plants there. And I think it kind of links to the discussion that was happening before, which was about immersive storytelling, which was just a brilliant panel. They were talking about the power of story, the power of these ideas that kind of stick in your head. And to me, that's like what we can all do. And I suppose what I want us to sort of think about in this panel is, as artists, like, maybe we're not urban planners sitting in the council making big decisions, but actually, like, doing stuff on the ground does make really big decisions, and everything starts somewhere. So kind of similarly with our project, we're making basically a bench. That's all that we're making, but it's a symbol of what we believe a city should embody. And yeah, I'd kind of be interested to hear from Vertigo Graffitii about your experience of how have communities responded to the mural, and has it started conversations in that same way? Is it a form of urban acupuncture?
Bueno, pues en Colombia y en particular
in Colombia, and especially in our project in the city center of Bogota, the capital city of Colombia, it's very important to acknowledge the social and political movement that's happening at the moment in Colombia. It's very important to remember that this mural comes as a result of the youth being in lockdown. And of course, there's no other population group that needs public space to build their own identity as much as the youth does. So this mural would recognize how and when lockdown started to open up, how the most important cities in Colombia, they decided to turn to the streets. And this was something that was in the news. It wasn't as big as the Spring Arab, but it was something that had a very big impact politically. But most of all, it confirmed the importance of public space in building their identities. So it's very important to know that in those public spaces is where democracy happens. And democracy happens, and democracy is built through dialogue. Today in the world, we have to acknowledge that there are some places that are more advanced and some are lagging behind in terms of how good they are at dialogue. Unfortunately, in Colombia, one of the things that we lack is that ability to dialogue with the others. So the importance of painting this kind of murals, especially when they're as big as they are, it's 200 square meters, it's an enormous mural. It's so important because we're able to recognize that situation and we're trying to take a step towards dialogue. So this kind of murals, this kind of projects start to open up the dialogue, and we have to be aware of that. We are trying to stimulate that conversation, to foster that dialogue, and we can do that through a mural. Because when you walk the streets and you look at a mural, you're able to recognize the others. And you're able to recognize that the others do exist and that that's very important in public space, because through public space, we're able to recognize the existence of others. And in Colombia, we have an issue because we're a very young city. Egypt is very old and England is also very old, but Colombia as a democracy has only been a democracy for 200 years, which means that our processes have been, I'm not gonna say bad or good, just our own processes for making up our own democracy. And the youth has, well, had an impact. The war that maybe you have heard about, which is a war that has lasted quite a lot, has made some of us become enemies of others. And on top of that, there is a big issue, which is indifference towards war and towards the others. So the fact that we're able to paint the walls, I think this means that there has been a democratic progress, because we are acknowledging a historic moment, and what we are acknowledging is that we do not know how to dialogue with each other. And it all begins by acknowledging that lacking, and it all starts by acknowledging that in that wall there is a different way of thinking, a diverse way of thinking. And I hope that you can visit the most important cities in Colombia, Medellin, Bogota, Cartagena, and you will see how all the cities are covered in paintings. Anyone who visits our countries asks us why we paint on the walls. And I think that it's not really deliberate, but it's rather a symptom, because we are aware that we need to recognize the others, that we need to see the others. Yes. Now, about the mural, as Camilo said, this was around 2020. We were in a pandemic, and private space became the only space at that moment. It was the only place where we actually felt safe, right? And there was distance from others. We didn't want to be infected. The social dynamics changed. Now the screens of our phones, of our computers were our way of establishing contact with others. At the end of that year, there is a social outburst here in Colombia because of some decisions that were made by the government, and that made us be in disagreement. So it didn't matter if we were in the middle of a pandemic, the health situation, we didn't care about that, and we decided to take to the streets. So the public space that used to be completely alone, you would maybe see a couple of cars and maybe some people walking on the streets, but suddenly the streets were flooded with people, thousands of people that were marching, that were demanding some basic liberties. And in this marching, are we not only walking on the streets, but also artistic practices were boosting through dancing. For instance, when we were walking on the streets, people were dancing, people were playing music. And as Camilo said, in this city, this urban acupuncture is very exciting because, on the contrary, there are very few blank spaces. There's graffiti, there's stickers, there are pictures, there are installations, and not just from people who create art, who see themselves as artists, but anyone here is entitled to intervene space, because public space can be completely transformed. So from this social bustling here, during the paro nacional, during this social situation, that's where we got our inspiration from. So you can see in the murals some people in a circle, and they seem to be dancing, which is another way of manifesting, and it's another way of establishing dialogue with the others. I might not understand your language, but dancing is a universal language. So in this mural, you can see African communities, you can see the LGBTQI plus communities, which is very important for the mural. They also were the ones that were dancing, and that they used dancing as a symbol of resistance through the body. There is also a drawing of a dog, and there are many interesting social symbols depicted in the mural. Now, when you see the mural in the Bronx, in the city of Bogota, the Bronx was a place that was very vulnerable. It was a place where crime would happen. There was prostitution, drug trafficking, and the fact that the mural is there after the Bronx becoming a cultural circuit, and that mural is the facade of that circuit. It's located in one of the main roads of the city. You can see it from the Transmilenio, which is a public transportation system. People who are walking, they can see it from the streets. You can see it from many blocks away, because Bogota is a city that is surrounded by hills, so you can see it from many places. And I think it's very impactful for anyone who is walking and sees the mural. And it's great because we have received many positive comments about how the mural is also changing the dynamics of this place, changing the dynamics of this neighborhood, of this area. And Bogota is a multicultural capital city. We have people from many places that come to start their lives here. So we see all kinds of people. And with this mural, we can see how through dancing, which is depicted in a public space, we can hear from other people's perspectives. We can see other people's perspectives. So it becomes a big public gallery where no matter whether you're walking or driving, you can see this mural, and it's incredible. And over here, it's very easy to see graffiti from very significant artists, or maybe a poster from someone that you don't even know. So this public gallery, I think, provides us with very interesting readings for us, the youth, but also for anyone who occupies this space.
That makes complete sense. I was going to ask why it's important for young people to occupy these spaces, but I feel like you just answered that in what you've just said. So I want to ask an important question now, because a lot of people will maybe say, well, who owns these public spaces? Who has the right to them? Is it the people, or is it the governments? So, Amin, I want to come to you first, and then you, Bryony. Who has the right to the city? Who has the right to make these decisions about what happens in these public spaces?
Yeah, I mean, I think the city is a space that should be common for all people. It's something that is lived by all of its inhabitants, but often the decisions of how it functions and how it's designed are always top-down. It's something that I've seen in my context where the formal city center is very securitized, and it's often then you see in informal spaces found in a lot of the global south cities, they become a reaction to the failure of the system to provide space for its people. So while we should not romanticize informality, as long as our cities are not democratically reclaimed, informal activities, I think, shouldn't be considered chaotic survival mechanisms, but as something to learn from, something to make space for, something to help guide the decisions that make our space. So that's something also in the project that I've been working on with the prototype city Coventry. Was also very interesting for me because as an architect, I haven't been able in Egypt to work in public spaces except for spaces found on the urban edge. And it's often impossible, as Bryony said as well, like it's, you're always pushed out by a certain force, being the government or something else. But with Prototype City, I've been able to at least work on a small patch of grass, making a small intervention to allow people to rest there. But I think that's also, it allows people to question who are just passing by, and that's the importance of public space, that they pass by and see a patch of grass that has a certain function that makes them think, yes, I can use this to rest on or to lie on or to hang out on with friends. And it makes people rethink their agency of their city. It makes people really reconsider the fact that the city is theirs and not just something that is outside their control.
Yeah. Bryony, what do you think? Who do you think has the right to the city?
We all do, but we have to take it. And I think that's kind of what we're all saying. Like Tatiana, I suppose you were saying about visibility, and that's so important. And then Amin, you're talking about agency, which is the sense of having a right to shape those places. And I grew up with parents who took me to certain types of spaces, and therefore I felt like I had a right to those spaces, like an art gallery or a park. But other people, if they haven't had that upbringing or that education, or what they've seen in the public realm is scary or uninviting, then we end up in a really dangerous place where people don't expect it, and they don't demand it and they don't fight for it, and then they lose it. So I think one of the things we have to kind of push against, not to get really political and economic, is pushing against the factors that make us all stay at home and work a really long day. We have to go and sit in these spaces. We have to go sit in parks. We have to be the characters that you associate with those places. And I think that this is a youth panel, and I'm in my late 20s, and I spent my early 20s living in Australia and then in Spain, and always feeling like I didn't own the city because I was very transient. Whereas now, because of Brexit, I can't move overseas. I'm back in the UK, and I'm finally kind of occupying these cities that I grew up in and realizing no one's going to defend the city if we don't. Yeah, I think that just feels like we have the right to the city, but we have to take it, basically. Yeah. Otherwise, we lose it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you can have it, but if you don't actually, it's like someone says, here's a glass of water. If you don't take it, it's not actually your glass of water. It's just there on the table. I do want to get to Q&A, so I'm going to ask one more question, just in case someone does have a question in the audience. And remember, if you are watching on YouTube as well, you can type your questions in the comments, and hopefully someone will get them over and the panel can answer. But I do want to ask, I'm going to put this to you, Bryony. How do you think that the decision makers or the people who have control over the cities, how do you think that they can involve young people in shaping their cities?
Two things. One, fund projects. Pay people who already do good things to carry on doing what they're doing. Find Vertigo, Graffitii, find Amin, help them live. And secondly, affordable housing. I live on the fringes of Manchester so that I can operate in a arty way. Yeah, funding affordable housing. It's not complicated.
Pretty simple, pretty concise. I do want to go out to the audience now to see if anyone has a question regarding anything that may have been asked or said. One at the front.
Hello. Hi guys. Sorry, I missed some of it, but I would like to just speak about how architecture and infrastructure, in terms of how we design cities, how we can improve the way in which cities and villages and areas work. Like, what's your thoughts on it? And what would you say are the main core elements of a city, a town, or an area for it to thrive, whether it be, you know, job opportunities, educational institutes, or health institutes? So yeah, or even down to roads, you get me, or sewage systems and so forth. By the way, I study architectural technology, so I'm quite interested in these areas in regards to how we can design for the future and design, you know, safe spaces for people, especially recreational grounds. Yeah, and hubs like this one.
Great question.
Does anyone have a burning desire to answer that off the bat, or friends in Colombia? Amin?
I have some thoughts on that because it's also something that I constantly think about. And I mean, right now I'm studying in Switzerland, for example, where every inch is almost designed to the extreme. But even then, you can see there are some priorities in how cities are designed. The infrastructure is designed. It's designed for the car. It's designed for a certain type of movement. Areas are just designed to be maintained aesthetically, but not to be used. And yeah, these are all the things that we need to reconsider when we look at our cities, when we look at patches of grass or where there are no bike lanes, for example, or something as simple as that. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think we need to take the responsibility of bringing to the table to decision makers. We need to rethink our education as well, to be interdisciplinary, to talk with artists, to talk with locals, to talk with people in areas to know what they need, instead of imposing a certain reality that just keeps repeating, and it's not sustainable even environmentally. So yeah, this is a major concern that we all need to think about moving forward.
Brilliant. Bryony, do you have any comments?
So the question was, like, how do we, quite holistic, how do we design cities that take all of those factors and make good public spaces, basically? And improve the experience and quality of life. Lots of things. I think participatory design is great. Architecture and urban design are really complex strategic things, but they also aren't, and they require us to talk to people who use cities. So that's one. What Amin was saying about, like, having a hierarchy where, like, children, old people, pedestrians are at the top, and cars and things which aren't like what we want the future to look like are maybe lower down, is a good approach as well. And I think my third thing would be, like, thinking about this idea of globalized cities. I think there's a danger that we make very homogenous cities. Like, Coventry should be different from Cairo, it should be different from Bogota. Like, we should look at what's in a city that's brilliant, and sometimes it's stuff that's happened from the ground up, and turn that into the city's identity, so that when you go on holiday or you talk to your friend, or you're in your own city, you feel like, yeah, I'm in my own city. I'm not there just looking at H&M and Burger King and even the same kind of public design. Like, make it the design of the city. And that's the same with art. Like, it should feel like a place that has a really unique, strong sense of place. And often those cities are the underdogs. That's why the city of culture in the UK is such an interesting concept, because London's overrated. Like, come to the cool, interesting cities. Yeah, that's probably my response.
I think that's a brilliant point. Where did I go on holiday? I can't remember where it was, but I remember being there thinking, this could be anywhere in the UK, but I'm not in the UK. I'm in like a whole different country. So that's a really important point about identity. Do we have any other questions over here?
Hi everyone, I was really inspired by the clips both from Egypt and also Colombia. I would like to visit both and hopefully see you both all. My name is Milka and I'm a freelance consultant. I work with communities, I do lots of different work, but from a creative lens or from a community lens, my question is, how do we use space in terms of creative spaces for young people? A lot of spaces you have to pay for in the UK, so how do we harness the creativity that a lot of young people have, a lot of people have in terms of people that are coming out of prison or young people within all kind of boroughs within the UK and London? How do we open up the creative sector? How do we support our young people? And how do we create accessible, free, creative spaces for youth to kind of really use their power and their creativity in making social change?
Shall we go to our friends in Colombia?
Pues, hay una fórmula que se ha dicho muchas veces.
Well, there's a formula that we have heard in Colombia, but it's not very popular. Less shopping malls, less shopping centers, and more parks. Because shopping centers is the place that creates consumption relationships, and that's not wrong, but if it becomes the only place to go on the weekend and the only place for the youth to go, of course that this is very restricting, especially when it comes to the intersection from the different members of society. So we must create spaces where everyone is able to encounter, where everyone is able to go and meet. And I think that these kind of places are the places that spark creativity. It is when you are wandering around the city, it is when you are observing the city that this kind of connections happen. In Bogota, there is a mayor that was very significant, and he spoke about how the success of shopping centers is the opposite for the city, because in shopping centers, at least in Colombia, because of where they are located in very specific areas of the city, the same kind of people go to those places, and the same kind of people go exactly to the same places. So what is happening is that it's the opposite to what actually happens in public spaces, which is a place for different kinds of people from different sectors to meet. So it's important that different people meet in different spaces, and I think that that is very important. I think that creativity of the youth is going to thrive if we're able to create spaces and if we design cities so that people can integrate. In Bogota, there is only one place where there is true integration, and it's called the Ciclovia, and it's a cycle lane during Sunday mornings, and the south and the north of the city and the west and the east of the city, they are all joined by this temporary cycle lane. But the rest of the week, people are just in the same spaces with the same kind of people that they have always lived with. And this has created a city that discriminates, that segregates. Even when our city demographically is multicultural, there really isn't that multiculturality when it comes to the encounters of people.
Thank you for that. Hopefully that answered your question. I believe that is all we have time for in terms of questions. But I do really want to thank our speakers, Vertigo, Graffitii in Colombia, Amin in Egypt. If you can give them a round of applause. Woo, 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 woo. And of course, Bryony in the UK. And to our Spanish translators and our BSL translators over here as well. doing an amazing job. So we are going to have a 45-minute break now. And when we come back, we're going to go into the last segment of the day. So do join us there because we've got some really great things planned for that time.